lots of cucks in the jug, right, Lauren? We've been boosting our well-being today. There's a real sense of ready and raring. So, Brett, you are going to be talking to us about two things: about exam anxiety, but also about tutors and exams, I hope, because we're really proud to be partnered with Tutors and Exams, because I am passionate about enabling tutors to do all the things. So, what Tutors and Exams can help tutors to do is actually deliver qualifications for students. So, you can take them all the way through a subject and then plug them into Tutors and Exams to do the actual exam. They do not need to wait until their school or college offer a qualification in order to be able to access it. And for those of us who are working with children who cannot go to school, that is a game changer. So I'm really, really passionate about this opportunity that we create together. But right now, what we've been speaking about is how to help students to know how to cope, no, how to help tutors to know how to help students to cope with exam anxiety. Am I right, Brett?
That's the plan. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I will stop yapping now and hand straight over to you. Let's go.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It sounds like you've been having a fantastic time all day. So there's no pressure on me with the graveyard shift. I believe this is the home stretch now. So yeah, first of all, just a little bit about us. I haven't got a presentation on tutors and exams. I always have to start off by saying, although we're called tutors and exams, we don't do any tuition whatsoever. We work with lots of tutors and learning providers, and we're delighted now to be partnering with QT, because we're about just running exam centres. And as Julia has alluded to, particularly for private candidates, and for us, that's any candidates who are studying outside of mainstream education. They can study with you guys, GCSEs, A-levels, IGCSEs, IALs, whatever it might be, functional skills. And then when they're ready, within the relevant exam season, they can come and book through our website to sit the exam at one of our centres. We have just, we're moving into our 10th year. So we're celebrating our 10th birthday next August. And as part of that, we're delighted to announce we've just literally opened our 10th exam centre in Birmingham. So we have centres stretching from the northwest in Bolton through to Birmingham, Coventry. I always struggle to remember them all. We've got one in Doncaster, Taunton for the southwest, and then places like High Wycombe, Wimbledon, Romford, around London. I'm sure there'll be more to come in the future. We can't cover everywhere, but yeah, we're delighted to be opening our 10th centre. And I'll give you a little insight a little bit later, maybe, of how you can work with us and how your students can apply to sit their exams. And before I start my presentation and forget, I'm on the lookout. If is there anyone here, or do you know anyone who are specifically Spanish or French tutors and are able to run speaking test assessments next summer for either IGCSE, Pearson or Cambridge speaking tests? One of our partners is Wolsey Hall, and they've got a candidate on the South Coast who's struggling to do their French and Spanish exams next summer. So if you're based on the South Coast and you do languages, or you know someone, my email address is on the end of my presentation, so I'd be delighted to hear from you. And I think we've just literally posted it on your jobs board as well. So without any further ado,
I'm just going to jump in super briefly and say the problem you probably know that you're having is that examination board assessors for oral language exams need to be examination board trained. And to be examination board trained, they need to be working for an assessment centre. So you've got a chicken and egg situation. If you haven't been trained by an assessment centre or school, you can't assess for the exam. There you go. I'll let you do the rest of your presentation.
Well, if anyone wants to do that, we can help with all that. We work with lots of assessors, language tutors, and that's what we do, because we don't have them ourselves. We recruit them every year to come and do the assessments for us for the speaking test.
I was wondering, now that she said, where's this egg? Because I do mark exams and I'm not affiliated with anything, but just mark them for the examining board.
Speaking exams specifically.
Oh,
not to do the marking afterwards,
Oh, I
which the
see.
exam board should be training you for separately, but to
Yes.
sit in the room and run the speaking
Oh, the
exam.
moderating bit of it where you're actually
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a neck that needs to be cracked then.
So there you go. But that's exactly why this relationship is so exciting, because Brett can help MFL tutors to access the training, because Tutors and Exams has relationships. Sam, I was thinking about you when I planned this. Tutors and Exams has relationships with all the examination boards. And that's why Brett can plug us into that training so that you can get what you need to deliver those sessions, which of course is an extra income stream and really bolsters your role in your niche. Yay.
Absolutely. Okay, without any further ado, you'll have to excuse me. I'm not used to Zoom these days, but let's give it a go.
Never apologize, never explain, Brett.
Can we all see my presentation?
Yeah, we're with you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so summer exams are only 5 months away. And I don't know about you guys, but in terms of taking exams, there's always a lot of exam nerves. But certainly since the pandemic, we've seen a significant rise in the level of anxiety. And that's just the parents. So we started to, as a company, we like to offer more than just exam centres. We're more than just a place to come and sit your exams. So we like to help the candidates, as we call them, through the exam journey, and we like to offer help and support wherever we can. So I ran something similar to this last summer, and we had over 100 attendees. So it's clearly a hot topic. So what I'd like to do today is share some insights into nerves, stress, anxiety, particularly in relation to exams, but also hopefully offer you with some practical solutions of how you can perhaps better guide and support your students when it comes to exam time. But first of all, let's have a bit of fun. Could you all please write down for me something that might be stressing you out at the moment, something that you're a bit nervous or stressed about? Now, I appreciate I'm not referring to if you've unfortunately got a family illness or something like that, but more along your work life. What might be building up in your mind and stressing you out at the moment? Could you write that down for me, please? So before I move on, let's think about the physical outcome of stress and what that looks like, or more particularly feels like. And I guess when we're anxious, when we're stressed, things like you feel anxious in that but physically your heart rate increases, your breathing increases when we're stressed. But then what happens when we're excited? Well, our heart rate increases and our breathing increases. So it's almost like whether we're anxious or whether excited, it's the same physical response. So something I've learned more and more over the years is that actually it's all in our heads. And sometimes we're our own worst enemies in all this. So I just wanted to spend a small amount of time understanding the psychology and biology of what happens when we're stressed, because then we can start to really empathize, I guess, with the students. So I guess the first thing to say, did you know that when we're in a state of heightened anxiety or stress, that within 7 minutes our IQ halves? Now, if you're like me, you can't really afford that to happen. But that's why when we're in a state of high stress or anxiety, we struggle to think. We make poor decisions. And I guess what we don't want is our students sat there in a position where they're highly stressed and they just can't function. They just can't think straight. they've got an exam paper in front of them, and all of a sudden they become a bit overwhelmed. And it's this thing about fear. Did you also know that we're only actually born with two fears, which is the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling? So we're born with all these with only two primal fears. So actually the stress, anxiety and fear that we grow up with and then have in later life or certainly as teenagers, it's actually all learnt as we go along. And if we go back to the example of how you might be stressed at the moment or something that's going on in your life, it's usually 90% of that stress, that fear, is something to do with the future. It's actually something to do with a situation or something you might be having to do, deliver a study session, whatever it might be, that you're not looking forward to, that we're actually getting stressed about. So it hasn't even happened yet. And that's very common. Oops, excuse me. And then the other thing about our primal makeup is that our brain, its default program is always on the lookout for danger. So thousands of years ago, we were looking out for saber-toothed tigers, but today there are still many threats in modern lives. So I wonder if you know how many thoughts we typically have in a day. It's actually over 60,000 thoughts that we have. And something like 80% of those thoughts can actually be negative because we're always on the lookout for danger. So what can we start to do about that? So with your students, if you will no doubt know your students very well, you'll get to know the ones who are more confident, the ones who perhaps are less confident, the ones who are more likely to suffer a bit from exam nerves and a bit of stress. So it's really trying to, first of all, engage with them and understand what is it they're worried about. But also from what I've just gone through, the fact is that for all of us, it's only natural. What we want to do is stop it from growing too much and becoming too much of an issue for them and actually overwhelming them. So the first thing we can do physically, and if you have a student who is particularly anxious, is to breathe. And I'm sure a lot of you may have heard of different breathing techniques. And there are things like breathe in for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then breathe out again for 4 seconds. I came across one a few months ago called the double inhale. So shall we give it a try? So what the double inhale is if you'd like to participate, is you take a deep breath as much as you can and hold it, and then actually breathe in again. So really push the air into your lungs. Just hold it for a second and then breathe out, almost like as a sigh. And I've tried it and it seems to work really well because you're really forcing the air into your lungs. And then if you just hold it for a second and then breathe out as a sigh, you can really feel your body relaxing. And this is the physical way that you start to deal with someone who's in a very high stress situation. And it's actually something called resetting your autonomous nervous system. So if you've got a student who's in a state of high stress, get them to breathe. And if you can remember the double inhale technique I've just shared, or really just get them to take deep breaths, hold it, sigh, then that starts to calm them down physically. However, that's fine for that moment, for that particular instance, but it's not dealing with the underlying issues of what's causing them to be stressed in the first place. So what else can we do? Well, with a lot of things in life, whatever difficult situation you're going through, you may not be able to change that situation, but you can probably just change your perspective of it. So how can you help to change your students' perspective on where they are right now, particularly if they're finding revision exams all a bit too much? Well, we all see exams as something to be frightened of, don't we? It's like, oh, I've got exams. It's this foreboding thing that's going to hit them at the end of their studies. So it's like, how can you as tutors get them to engage and actually embrace the process? There's something called the what if technique. So I'm sure a lot of students who are lacking a bit of confidence, feeling a bit anxious, they'll be thinking, but what if I don't do very well? What if I don't get the grades that I'm hoping for? You know, what if I fail my exams? You know, what if I let my parents down? It's turning what if into a positive and trying to coach them that if you're hearing that kind of language from them is say, well, no, come on, guys. What if you do really well? What if you put the work in, you take on board everything I've taught you, we follow a program of revision, and you put the hard work in for a few weeks, because that's what it realistically is, a few weeks, maybe months. But what if you do really well? What if you smash it? What are your parents going to be? Think about what that will look like, how you will feel when you achieve the grades that you're after. All your friends and family are going to be really happy for you. And it's that visualization that's far more positive than the place where they probably are right now, which is that visualization of, yeah, but what if I don't do so well? And it's about creating that positive focus, because our brains actually can't differentiate between negative or positive. It just is whatever we're focusing on at the moment. So as an example, what if I said to you, I do not want you to picture a pink elephant. Well, hang on. I said, I do not want you to focus on visualizing a pink elephant with nice big pink ears and a pink trunk. Now, hopefully what happened there is we all started to immediately imagine the picture of a nice big pink elephant with big pink ears and a pink trunk. And that's the point. Our brain engages with whatever we focus on, and we can't shut off the negative. Therefore, let's get all the students focused on the positive. Another way to change our perspective is to think about, and we can all do this in life, however difficult a situation is in right now, how is this situation serving me? Or how actually might I be benefiting from it? Because if you can see that in this case, taking your exams, as difficult as or foreboding as the process may seem, in terms of all the studying, all the revision, well, of course, if you put that hard work in and apply yourself, then there's going to be a real benefit to the fact that you'll achieve the grades, that you're looking to take you on to whatever is next in your journey. If you're doing GCSEs, the benefit, of course, is that you move on potentially to A levels. If you're doing A levels, potentially you move on to university, so on and so forth. So yeah, we might have a few tough weeks to get through, a lot of work to get through, but it's all for the good. It's all for your benefit to take you on for the rest of your life. And then the real goal here is, could we even get to a place of gratitude? When we're stressed, our body delivers a hormone called cortisol, which is the one that really affects us. But the happy hormone is dopamine. And that comes through if we can change our perspective to one of happiness and gratitude. So just another little trick for you. Could you write down again for me what you're grateful for? So four things right now that you're grateful for. So my tip to you is, when you've had a really bad day, when life doesn't seem great, at the end of the day, just come home and write down 4 things that you're grateful for that day. Now, I appreciate this is a real challenge with potentially a load of stroppy teenagers, but the fact that we woke up this morning, how many people around the world, unfortunately, didn't wake up this morning? If you've got a roof over your head, if you've got food on the table, if you've got a family that are healthy and happy, all the things we take for granted, all the things we tend to lose perspective on that are actually still really positive about what's going on in our lives, that's a real way of changing our mindset for one of doom and gloom, stress and anxiety, just to switch the dial to be a bit more positive and actually not lose sight of what we should be grateful for as well. But the final part and the real tool here to deal with stress, anxiety, and particularly with our exam nerves is to have a plan. So I'm sure you work very closely with all your students in terms of their studies and then preparing them for the exams. But how many of them actually have a plan? By having a plan, we move away from our brains from that emotional to rational thought. So what's their plan? When it comes to finishing their studies and now moving into exam mode, into revision studies, that kind of thing, hopefully a lot of you do this with them anyway, but a lot of students don't have a plan, do they? They just know they've got to revise, and there's real benefit to having a plan written down. And I always advise, build yourself a revision timetable and stick it on your wall. It's there, it's visible for you. Get your exam timetable and then work a plan backwards, however many weeks it may be, of plotting your subjects, your topics. You know when the exam's going to be. So work back and build a revision plan as well.
Sorry, Brett, I have to jump in here. I can't resist being on my best behavior. But I want to share with you guys that up here on this wall is Binyamin's study buddy. So my Binyamin is 15. He's in year, whatever it is that they do there at GCSEs, year 11. And he and I were struggling to get him organized, and absolutely having a written plan up on the wall has made all the difference for us. So bang on, Brett.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great testament, Julia. Thank you very much. Yeah, because I don't think many students actually do this, and it is for anything in life. If you're struggling, if you're stressing about something, and as I said earlier, that's usually something in the future, a great way to deal with that stress is to write down a plan, particularly if it's something that you're working to a deadline on, obviously, such as exams. I'm sure you work very hard with all your students in terms of helping them revise. But have they got the revision guides? Do they have a revision buddy? How do people study? Some people prefer to study on their own. Some people would respond better and work better if they could study with their best mate, maybe, or within a study group. Past papers. I'm sure you all do this, but yeah, just not go into exams cold. Having that opportunity to actually practice and do some past papers. However, one of the services that we offer is to actually come and do a mock exam in an exam centre. A lot of private candidates are they're no longer institutionalized. And what I mean by that is they're being home educated, or they may be working with guys like you as tutors, but they're just not used to going to a big building, a school, a college. There'll be anxiety around that vision of a big exam hall with just rows and rows of hundreds of desks and chairs. None of our centres are like that. We have big rooms, but nothing as big as that. So during March, so maybe make a note, for the first 2 weeks of March next year, we always run a mock exam series where you can either just come and take a mock exam for the exam experience, not necessarily marked, or we can get them marked, or you can mark them if you're qualified, to give them a predicted grade.
Very brief question. Do you do those for speaking exams as well, or just for written exams?
Yeah, anything. Mainly written, but if a candidate is really anxious about the speaking test, we can arrange mock speaking tests as well. And then I'm sure a favorite subject of any of us that are parents or with you guys is that motivation. How do we keep them motivated? I think motivation's overrated. To me, it's all about discipline. As we all know, we're ruled by our emotions in that some mornings we don't want to get up, particularly coming into winter. It's cold and dark, but we have to get up because we have to go to work because we've got bills to pay. And I think don't worry about motivation. But I think your example, Julia, a plan and a discipline to stick to a plan beats motivation every time. Something that's very important as well, though, in terms of just general health as well as mental health, is for the students to look after themselves. So it's okay to have a plan, but we don't want them overworking. It's about having a plan with breaks. One of the best solutions for stress, anxiety, nerves is actual physical activity. Just going for a walk, just going out, getting some fresh air. So eating well, sleeping well, and looking after themselves generally, physically as well as the mind.
Brett, you won't believe me, but we've only got 3 minutes.
I'll be quick. I'm nearly done.
It's been really, really helpful.
And if there is an anxiety about coming to a building to sit your exams, particularly with us, you can come and visit the centre. You can arrange a centre visit. And in fact, we haven't done them for a few years because of the pandemic, but in the first couple of weeks of July, we're actually doing open days in most of our centres. And you can go on a website and book your place and come and see a centre.
No, I can't resist that one. QT members, you are invited to go in and actually introduce yourself to parents at the tutors and exam centres that day. Brett really wants parents to have everything that they need. So he's delighted for you guys to go in there and actually have, a table and set yourself up and say, I'm a tutor, I can help your child to get towards this qualification. So there are 10 events happening in December that you can book in for that.
Yeah, thanks. And then also, again, it's about planning. We don't want parents and students stressed. They're traveling to the centre on the morning of the exam, probably haven't been there before. So it's just some basics of do a recce, come and visit the centre, plan your route. And then finally, on the day of the exam, we all know what dealing with students like teenagers are like. Make sure that you impress on their parents to get them well organised. Get anything they need for the exam ready the night before so they're not stressed and rushing out of the house on the morning of the exam. Get there in plenty of time. We ask all our candidates to try and get there at least 45 minutes before the exam because we've got a lot of students to get in and sat down and ready for the exam. When you're there, again, train them to breathe. If they're sat there, they're sat at the exam desk, the exam's about to start, they're feeling very anxious, just breathe. Long, big, deep breaths. Try the double inhale. Get ready to run. This is a little technique I was shown in terms of making presentations. So if you're sat there about to make your presentation and you're feeling quite anxious, if you actually sit at the front, if you imagine sitting on the front edge of your seat with both of your feet on the ground, ready to jump up at any minute, it actually helps, or certainly helped me with a bit of my own anxiety or stress. So that's what I call get ready to run. And then some good old things that I'm sure you coached on anyway is, when you're in those moments of high anxiety, as I said, your IQ is actually dropping, you're struggling to think, breathe, relax, read the question, and make sure you answer the question. So many candidates don't get the marks they desire because they actually failed to answer the question properly. And then finally, relax. It's going to be okay. And that's it. All I ever hope from these sessions that anyone listening to me has at least got one idea out of it. But maybe what are the 3 things you've heard from my webinar that this afternoon that you may have learned today that you can implement yourself, that you can take on board to help your students. I hope you've picked up some ideas, and if you can, then yeah, what's your plan? And please write them down now so you don't forget. So finally, I think we've run out of time, so I'll leave it over to Julia to say, are there any questions? Or in fact, do any of you guys have any great tips that you might want to share?
Well, Brett, you did promise us your email address on the next slide, is that?
There you go. Thank you.
So let's make sure that we get there. So if you have any questions for Brett about using the Tutors and Exams resources, there's a few ways to engage with Tutors and Exams. As we said, you can put your students forward for qualifications through T&E. You can train as an examiner through T&E. You can also use their facilities when it's not exam time, because they have these 10 beautiful buildings all over the country. So if you want to run group sessions, you may well find that Brett's got a building nearby you that you can use for that. They're very comfortable and very appropriate, very well set up buildings. So there's lots of ways that we're hoping to work together with T&E in the future, but I hope you can see it's a really aspirational project, because what it does is it starts removing the barriers that tutors have to really providing everything that your students need. On that note, thank you, Brett. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
But hopefully there'll be lots more. On that note, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to implore you to read the emails that Hannah's going to send you next. She took a leaf out of Helen Dickman's book. She has written a stunning series of emails with lots of calls to action for you about becoming a QT member, becoming QT certified, about engaging with our partners, and about making use of all the transformational opportunities that we have prepared for you. Is that Beth? Beth Osmond? I hope you had a nice day at school. I'm going to go and pick up Sarah now. I'm going to thank you for engaging with us at every level today. Thank you so much to Study Buddy, who sponsored our coffee raffle. And the biggest, hugest, forgive me everybody, thank you, is to Hannah Liversidge, who ran the tech from beginning to end of the concept of this event to the delivery of this event. And you've made it all so smooth and lovely and calm for everyone. Hannah, we really love and appreciate you. Thank you for supporting our community every day. I know, Dee, right? So let's give Hannah a big, one of those. Thank you, my friends. See you again in the QT community. Please don't hesitate to be in touch. I am here for you. That's what I do. Louise, nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, MJ. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Tamara. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Manjinder. Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Claire T. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Dieter. Thanks, Pakello. Thanks, Nicola. Thanks, Dee. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Leanne. Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Cynthia. And thank you, Daisy. Thank you. Bye.